During our 4 month in the NICU, we saw so many babies and families come and go. And I noticed something fascinating. There were these tiny preemies, still so small, who were already breathing independently, already drinking by mouth, then already going home. And then there was my son, still on full support for everything breathing, drinking, temperature, all of it. And those little preemies going home tiny were mostly girls. I mentioned it to one of the NICU family consultants over a casual chat, and she said, completely unsurprised, yes, girls leave earlier than boys. And I was like, what? As a mom and as a former baby girl who gave a birth to a boy preemie, I was fascinated and I had to dig deeper. Hi, this is Never Too Early. Today, I'm sharing what I found on one of the most interesting facts I came across during our entire NICU stay: the gender gap in prematurity. To understand why this happens, it helps to zoom out all the way to evolutionary biology. Male and female mammals have followed two different survival strategies for millions of years, and they can be summed up simply: males optimize for size, females optimize for maturity. Males grow faster and bigger in the womb. Bigger size means better odds of competing for territory, for mates, for resources. That growth advantage is real and it is ancient. But it comes at a cost. If more biological resources go into rapid size development, then less resources go into organ maturation and readiness for the outside world. Females take a different trade. They grow smaller and slower, but they mature faster. Their organs, and specifically their lungs, reach functional readiness earlier. They are, in a sense, built to be viable sooner. This trade off shows up across mammalian species, not just humans. Female animals born prematurely survive at higher rates than males across the board. It is an ancient pattern. The evolutionary logic behind the female strategy becomes clear when you think about the risk. A female born slightly early has a real chance of surviving, developing, and eventually reproducing. That outcome keeps the species going. A male born significantly early, before his size advantage is fully developed, historically had much lower odds of survival and reproductive success. So, over millions of years, natural selection reinforced faster maturation in females as a kind of insurance policy for the species. What's remarkable is how deep this difference goes. Researchers found that more than 140 genes are expressed differently in male and female placentas: before birth, before the NICU, before any of it. The two different strategies are encoded from the very beginning. All of that evolutionary history expresses itself biologically through one key substance: surfactant. As we covered in the breathing episode, surfactant is the substance that keeps the tiny air sacs in the lungs from collapsing. Preemies don't have enough of it, and it turns out that how quickly a baby develops sufficient surfactant is directly influenced by sex hormones. Here's the mechanism: estrogen, the female hormone which female fetuses are exposed to through the placenta, actively stimulates surfactant production and accelerates the development of the alveoli, the tiny structures in the lungs responsible for gas exchange. Testosterone, the male hormone which male fetuses produce in their own testes, does the opposite. It actively delays the surge in surfactant production and slows lung maturation. So, from around week 26 to 36 of pregnancy, female fetuses show a more mature lung profile than males at the exact same gestational age. Female fetuses' surfactant production is ahead. Their airway resistance is lower, their lungs are functionally more ready. At 40 weeks, this difference closes and becomes clinically irrelevant. But at 23 weeks or 26 weeks, or even at 30 weeks, the gap is wide open. And it is the difference between breathing independently and needing a ventilator. There is another factor worth knowing about. When a baby is born, the body releases stress hormones called catecholamines as a part of the shock response to leaving the womb. Research has found that preterm female babies release significantly more catecholamines than males during this transition. These hormones help the body respond to oxygen deprivation, which means girls are biochemically better equipped to handle the stress of an early arrival from the very first moment. In numbers and the medical research, the gap is striking. A large study over 12,000 preterm infants found that female preemies had a significantly higher survival rate than males. 95.4% versus 93.6%. Those numbers may look close, but at the extremes of prematurity, they translate into meaningfully different odds. At 23 to 24 weeks, the zone my son was born in, the difference is most pronounced. Swedish national data found that the 1 year mortality rate at this gestational age was 60% for boys and 38% for girls. The same gestational age, the same level of prematurity, dramatically different outcomes. Boys born very preterm spend an average of 97 days in the NICU. Girls average 86 days. That's about a week and a half difference because the milestones take longer to reach for boys. Boys receive more doses of artificial surfactant. They develop chronic lung disease at higher rates. They need oxygen support at discharge more often. They have higher rates of brain bleeds on ultrasound. They take longer to achieve independent oral feeding. A Loyola University study found that female preemies reached independent oral feeding at average of 1 day earlier than males. And since that's one of the requirements to go home, even that 1 day matters. And even with all of modern medical advancement, surfactant therapy, antenatal steroids, gentle ventilation, the gender gap has not narrowed. It persists. The biology is stubborn. There's a phrase that circulates informally among NICU staff, particularly in American NICUs, that you may come across: wimpy white boy syndrome. I don't feel entirely comfortable using that term, but anyway, it's not a medical term. It's a casual clinical shorthand based on the staff's day to day experience on the NICU floor. It refers to the observation that white male preemies, particularly those born extremely early, tend to have the most difficult outcomes of any demographic group. But the racial component reflects real data. Black female preemies have consistently shown the best survival outcomes of any group, followed by Asian and Hispanic females, then white females. And all male groups follow the same racial order after that. Some modern research papers refer to it more formally as the male disadvantage or male vulnerability in preterm birth. And this explained a lot of why my child still remained in the NICU until his original due date at 3.6 kilogram, while some tiny, tiny preemies, often girls, were able to go home much earlier. It's one of those facts that once you know it, you can't unsee. Even for those of us who grew up in cultures that actively work toward gender equality, this is a reminder that sex hormones shape human development and experiences in ways that go far deeper than just the body differences. It's written into the placenta before the baby is even the size of a grape. And I suppose the girl mom versus boy mom dynamic starts even earlier than any of us realized, right there in the NICU. I'm glad I got to share this with you. It's one of those topics that genuinely fascinated me throughout those 4 months. And maybe understanding this gender difference from the very beginning is one more way to understand each other a little better, beyond NICU and the real world. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one. This is Never Too Early.